This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Hey, Boker Tov. We're here in Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh. We had a tremendous day yesterday, and today we're spending the day in the Yerushalayim. We're headed toward the Sanhedria Cemetery, where we have tzaddikim. We have Rabbi Levine is buried there, and also Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. We're going to speak a little bit about Maran Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, who revolutionized the observance of halacha and their attitude toward halacha. Of course, Rabbi Ovadia always upheld the ideals of the Beis Yosef. Rabbi Ovadia felt that the Beis Yosef was Mara the Eretz Yisrael, was the Rav of Eretz Yisrael, and his psukim needed to be abided by. Firstly, even Sfardim who came from other countries who had minhagim to follow perhaps Ben Ish Chai, Rabbi Ovadia held that the Beis Yosef was the Mara the Asra of Eretz Yisrael, and in Eretz Yisrael, his psukim needed to be followed. Rabbi Ovadia, of course, wrote the Yavia Omer, which was 10 volumes, and Baruch Hashem now an 11th volume just came out posthumously, and of course the Shas Shuvas Yichavadas, and many other Svarim. So we're headed toward one of the great luminaries of our own times. But besides Rabbi Ovadia being the prodigious posek that he was also tremendous marbitz Torah. He traveled the length and breadth of Eretz Yisrael to give shiurim and to teach Torah. And in fact, Rabbi Ovadia held that the job of a rav, let's say of a city, is primarily to give shiurim. And as great as he valued writing Shalos HaTshuvos, Rabbi Ovadia held that the job of a rav was harbatzas HaTorah. So Rabbi Ovadia would take any means available. He would even travel by helicopter to various areas in Eretz Yisrael to be able to offer Shiurei Torah. It's interesting, Rav Ovadia's son-in-law, Rav Toledano, when he was the Rav in Haifa and it became known that he was willing to give Shiurim upon public request, he was once invited to speak in a particular school, and after accepting the invitation, he was told that the school was co-ed, that the boys and girls would learn together, and he was uncomfortable delivering the shiur in that type of environment. And he called Rabbi Ovadia for advice. And Rabbi Ovadia responded with the following beautiful line. Rabbi Ovadia explained 5 words. The sun shines for everyone. Which means Torah is sunshine. When the sun shines, it does not discriminate. So too when one teaches Torah, one teaches to Yidden, and the light of it will illuminate and ultimately bring in the most proper and ideal direction. But when one has the opportunity to teach Torah, one should not discriminate based on the circumstances and environment. And that was an important attitude that Rabbi Ovadia had, and that's why he was so unanimously and widely beloved, because of his care and devotion and love to teach Torah to everyone. I'll just share with you a very interesting story in terms of the tenacity and the strength of character of Rabbi Ovadia. Rabbi Ovadia once was the prize of a comment of the Chida. The Chida writes in the Shem Hagdolim that he heard from the Ziknei Yerushalayim that there are 2 Sfarim of the Rishonim that one cannot rework into a new format: the Baal HaIter and Rabbeinu Yerucham. And the Chida explains the reason is because the Baal HaIter and Rabbeinu Yerucham come from something called the Olam de Iskasaya, the hidden realm. And therefore anyone who reveals it or attempts to rework the text will either die at a young age or lose the manuscript. And the Chida writes he knows of people who tried, who made the efforts, and either they passed away or the manuscripts were lost. So there was a young man by the name of Rav Yair Chazan. He was learning in Rav Moshe Yosef's kollel, who heard that there was a publishing house that was interested in releasing a new issue of Rabbeinu Yerucham. And he was offered the opportunity to work on the project, and naturally he asked many Gedolei Yisrael, and they all said, don't try it. You have a wife, you have children, why are you tampering with what the Chida writes? It's not worth the chance. He then came to Rabbi Ovadia, and he said, Rabbi Ovadia, what should I do? And Rabbi Ovadia said, publish it, don't be afraid, I will help you. And Reb Chazan said, what about the Chida's comment? Says Rav Ovadia, no, the Chida didn't say that there's a klala. He said he heard from Chachmei Ziknei Yerushalayim. But those Ziknei Yerushalayim, says Rav Ovadia, they were wrong, they were mistaken. Wow, what a courageous thing to say. Who's going to take on their shoulders some type of frightening report that no less than the Chida himself accepted? Well, Reb Chazan began to work on the project, on the Rabbeinu Yerucham, and strange things began to happen to him. First, one of his children was hospitalized, then another, and he comes back to Rabbi Ovadia. He says, Rabbi, what should I do? Things are going wrong. Maybe I should stop working on Rabbeinu Yerucham. Now Rabbi Ovadia didn't tell Rav Yair not to be afraid. He said, Yair, are you afraid? Rav Chazan said that if you give me your absolute assurance, I will not be afraid. Says Rabbi Ovadia, on my shoulders. Sure enough, Rabbi Chazan has published many volumes of Rabbeinu Yerucham in a clear, very easy to read format. And Baruch Hashem, he and his family are alive and well. Let me just conclude by sharing with you something Rabbi Ovadia writes in the Hakdama to his commentary on Pirkei Avos, Anaf Eitz Avos. And he writes beautifully that the Arizal told Reb Chaim Vital that the mitzvahs that he does are more valuable to Hashem now than even in earlier generations, even in the times of the Tanoim. And Rabbi Ovadia gave the following mashal, why the mitzvahs that we do today, even small mitzvahs, are more beloved and dear to Hashem, maybe even greater than tzaddikim of earlier generations. And Rabbi Ovadia said as follows, you know, there was once a princess. So the princess is in the palace, and somebody once came to the princess to bring her a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Princess says, what do you want me to do with this? Somebody came to her, brought her a salami sandwich. Princess says, I don't eat this kind of food. I eat delicacies, I eat gourmet, I'm a princess. But then she was captured. She was taken into captivity. She was starving. And someone was able to smuggle to her a measly peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and was able to nourish her and sustain her. The princess never forgot that. For the rest of her life, she was indebted, and she showed honor and kavod to the individual who fed her in the time of need. Says Maran Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, when the Beis Hamikdash stood in the days of old, and the Shechina was in the Beis Hamikdash, maybe a small mitzvah was not as vital, was not as valuable in the eyes of Hashem, because after all, Hashem is living in the palace. But now Shechinta begalusa, the Shechina is in exile, the Shechina is in the Galos. Now the Shechina is in the Galos, the Shechina Kaviyachal is Asar Bazikim, is in captivity. Now that the Shechina is in captivity, every small mitzvah we do is so dear and beloved in the eyes of Hashem. Teaches Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. We hope to have the great privilege to go to his Kever. All of our tefillah should be neskabel, barachma, v'ratzain. May his neshama be a male yosher for all of Klal Yisrael. Ad b'yaskoyel tzedek.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.